Thank you. So my name's Marcus Wildsmith. In case you were worrying that you hadn't had any enterprise software, don't worry, you're about to get it now. So this is a kind of a different for me. I've been in kind of big IT programs for about the last 15 years. So rolled out kind of global PLM software to people like Ford Motor Company. I've recently come from the launch of EE, where we rolled out 4G across the UK. So my background is kind of doing big, difficult things in big organisations. And my co-founder has got a similar background, so he was heavily involved in the Olympics and also the European Space Station. So our background is how do you bring organisations together to do those big, difficult things? What we've really found is that when you get to the end of that, you have a whole bunch of different people coming together, and you go from this place where you've kind of got a really tight-knit team, like a bunch of project managers, to you're trying to engage a whole bunch of different people. So if you take EE, for example, we were rolling out to 700 retail stores. We were doing a whole bunch of branding events in terms of launching to the market. We were launching a bunch of new products. We were dealing with internal IT teams, so we had about a month of doing kind of fairly big, complex IT releases. Because you're also dealing with a bunch of senior people who want to know what's going on, and they know they're going to get fired if the network doesn't work, or if your ATMs don't work in the case of banking. You've got a bunch of people who suddenly give a shit when they didn't really care before. And what we found is the only thing that people use when you get into that situation is Excel, because it's kind of the lowest common denominator. So people tend to email around Excel spreadsheets of lists of things that people need to do, and then you have conference calls every day, maybe 3-4 times a day, with people going, have you done this, have you done that? So we stepped back and left the consulting firm we've been with for the last 13 years, and have gone about creating Godesic. What's probably kind of in IT is quite a common term is you call these things a runbook. So essentially we've gone into a runbook here, which is essentially a list of events. We're trying to make it easy in terms of adding new activities. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding a new task. I can also add a new milestone to this event, and I can type the text in. So essentially what you're doing is you're creating a plan. These by default run in sequence, and what you start to do is you're dealing in kind of minutes and hours rather than days and weeks. So a lot of scheduling stuff happens in kind of long time periods. So we're trying to make it in kind of the right amount of time. So you're going to say actually at 6:30 p.m. we need to shut down this server, and we need to kind of extract the data, and we need to do whatever computation you need to do. You also know that you need to do lots of comms events. So we've got the ability, so we've integrated with Twilio on the back end. So for example, you can say, I want to send an SMS or a call. So I can create a call and say, actually, this is a go, no-go conference call. And when you actually get into running the runbook in live, what you're doing is you're hitting the button. And what we were finding is you were saying, right, at 9 o'clock at night, you're going to have a conference call with 50 people on it to say whether we're okay to go. You were waiting for ages and you were trying to text those people to get them to come onto the call. What this does is you hit the button and it outbound phone calls everybody and gets them onto the conference call. So what you're trying to do is when those critical events are happening and you're kind of late at night, you're trying to take the burden off of people kind of running around and coordinating. You're giving everybody in the platform a single place to go, so everyone's working on one plan. Works across mobile as well, which I won't try and demo, but essentially, if I now go into a run event, so I think this is I go to. So in a different book here where I'm an administrator, I can say, actually, I think I've built this plan, I'm ready to go. What I want to do is I want to have a dry run, which essentially means I get the whole team involved. It does a QA of the plan, says, have I got all the things I need to do? Has every task in it got an owner? Have all the communications activities got an audience? And then you say, yeah, I'm ready to go. And you say, let's start the dry run. It then changes from a planning mode into an execution mode. And so what you're trying to do now is say, okay, I've done this task. It changes the status. That's saying it started. Now I'm saying it's done. The status in the top right-hand corner just gives you a clear view in terms of progress against what time we're at now. It would be sending out SMSs to people whose task was next. And if you're on mobile as well, so the example I talked about before, where people were out all around the country in retail stores and you were doing refits around the stores, people would be on their phones and saying, yeah, I've done it, yeah, I've done it, yeah, I've done it. And the people sitting in this case we're sitting in a room in the basement in Paddington, you would be seeing this stuff flowing through rather than having to phone people and text people. I think what I'm really trying to do here, and the reason for coming, is we're trying to blend kind of enterprise software, which is pretty clunky, with things I guess a lot of us are used to from starting up our businesses, things like Asana, which are kind of far more easy to use and intuitive. We're in early release. We have about 5 customers using this. We're looking for 5 more big corporates to get on board to help us plan the roadmap over the next 6 months. And we're really just trying to form the right ideas to put into the next version of the product. So thank you.
Thanks for showing us that. So all the problems you described are things that, because I work in big corporate at the moment, have done as a consultant as well, and we have a lot of these issues. One of the things you mentioned in the beginning, you mentioned a bunch of people getting together, working on a complex project. However, an audience of people, usually senior stakeholders, who don't really care, all of a sudden kind of start caring. But one thing I didn't get quite clearly from this is it seemed very easy to sort of assemble projects and get people involved. But one thing that's really painful is messaging people who don't really understand, who aren't really in the thick of it, who do come in at the 11th hour and want metrics, KPIs, information at a very top visual level, to get them away from the project team, to protect the project team. Is there, I guess what I'm asking is there a way that all this can sort of be blended and summarized in a very kind of slick way so someone can see the project you're working on, maybe the key kind of progress KPIs?
So there are probably 2 bits to it. I think one is logging in and kind of seeing some kind of dashboard. So we've created a simple dashboard. What we wanted to do is actually get some feedback from customers in terms of how we evolve that. The other is those communication events. I think most of the time, your senior people will be wanting to get a text message because they want that nice, comfortable feeling it's not going wrong. But how bothered really are they? So really, that's the main thing there is the comms events. So what you would do is you create those comms events for a particular audience. So you'd say, I've got a stakeholder group, it's my senior exec team, it's got these people in it, and I'm going to send them 1 email a day, and this is what's going to be in it. You can tailor it at the time, but essentially you pre-program that stuff. And you can say, I know that there are 5 big events in this thing, 5 big activities. So you might say, we've got the servers back online. You might say, kind of the phones have been shipped to store, things that the execs, and you just kind of create those 3 or 4 communication points. And as you run through the plan, when it gets to them, you kind of hit that play button and it will send out the SMS or the email.
That makes sense. You can control the events. So sorry, just one more question that I was interested in, because another problem that we've got often when you're running projects is, particularly when they're using very collaborative platforms where everyone can effectively assign tasks to everyone, is that if you're sitting trying to run the project, what you can get is you can get certain people throughout a long engagement, they become oversubscribed. You get sort of ridiculous situations where people are like 500% utilized because everyone's putting on Dave because they know Dave is awesome and he's just going to get his work done. And it's quite hard to see the big picture sort of a month, 2 months down the line, for example. Is there any sort of analytics in here that you can sort of look in terms of which tasks have been assigned to who, kind of just to get a feel in terms of, is everyone utilized? Is everyone doing kind of what's right for their job? That kind of thing to help you actually manage the project a little bit tighter?
So we've definitely avoided at the moment making this a kind of a competitive kind of in the marketplace of competing with project management applications in general. Kind of my take on those is they try and solve those problems which are massively complicated. So we're really focused on that kind of, I suppose, that last 2 or 3 months when you're actually in the launch phase. So you know who the team are, you know who's going to be involved. You probably know that you're going to need to involve some operational people. You know that you're going to need to involve some marketing people. So people who are not particularly kind of au fait with it, they do this stuff maybe 3 times a year. That's why we've kind of gone with a simple approach. So we're not trying to do that analytics of you've got 300 people, how well utilised are they? We're steering clear of that.
Huge round of applause for our final panel.